Scott Pilgrim?
Hi, I was thinking about asking you out, but then I realized how stupid that would be. So do you want to go out sometime?
Superheroes might rule the box office today, but the visual mechanics of the medium that spawned them have been mimicked considerably by directors for decades, to varying levels of success. Faux panels, speed lines, and sound effects can be traced as far back as the Batman 1966 TV show. However, a lot have fallen short, or been used out of pure kitsch.
Told ya! Comic books was bad for ya!
With one major exception. Scott Pilgrim is one of the only movies to ever successfully use comic book storytelling in a live-action film. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World was co-written by Edgar Wright and Michael Bacall, and based on comic book series Scott Pilgrim. The film has a keen visual language all its own, as does most of Edgar Wright's works. It uses energy, style, and ingenious transitions better than, well, most films not made by Edgar Wright in the 10 years since the film's release. Despite the film's commercial failure at the box office, it has since found a solid foundation of love among both the film fans and genre hounds alike. For the uninitiated, Scott Pilgrim follows the eponymous character as he begins dating manic pixie dream girl incarnate Ramona Flowers.
You know this one girl with hair like this?
Yes, that's Ramona Flowers.
And soon realizes that he has to literally battle her ex-partners in order to be in a relationship with her. Much of the film's now iconic and beloved visual stylistic aesthetics stem from the decisions that director Edgar Wright made. He chose to attempt to stay true to the source material in a way few directors do. The strengths of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is that the visuals that the story uses are organically pulled from that source material. The film is steeped in both video game iconography and comic book storytelling mechanics. The film draws heavily on the 6-volume series, pulling not only its story, themes, and characters, but many of its visual gags and cinematic tricks directly from that source material. It literally reproduces gags and jokes verbatim, which normally would be tiring, but with these filmmakers in control is exhilarating and something that we've seen in anime for a very long time. Right from the beginning of the film, it sets you up for this to be a different experience. We hear a narrator delivering a setup voiceover and we see text. This is not pure exposition like many other films. The way this is handled is intentional in order to get the audience accustomed to the idea of seeing text integrated on screen. This stylistic motif builds to the use of caption boxes. This is the second level of the film, using the comic book visual language to pull the audience deeper into the world of the film. It's all building, slowly pulling the audience further and further into this stylized world, getting the viewer accustomed to things that are familiar and that we recognize but not exactly our lived-in experience. This is taken a step further when Kim Pine screams, we see her words manifest literally, 1, 2, 3, 4 in midair. The text is also not a cold black and white font, it's a diffused digital printed look, almost half video game and half Ben-Day dots, paying homage to the twin mediums that spawned Scott Pilgrim. Whether playing music, we get the added visual motion lines or action lines that give everything a stylized and hyperkinetic feel. This appears to be a fun stylistic flourish here, but later in the movie it will prove to be a vital storytelling technique. Each one of these visual ideas is building on the other. They're all working in concert to create something greater. From here we get introduced to one of many now iconic scene transitions. Edgar Wright is known for his intricate transitions and whip pans, so we won't belabor the point, but this whip pan transition here does something else which is fairly interesting. As Michael Cera's Scott Pilgrim is talking on the phone to his sister in split screen, another comic book trope, we whip to the left and we fade into an exterior of a school with the bell ringing, and we see the onomatopoeia of the bell. This transition, which is really 3 distinct visual ideas piled on top of each other, creates a bit of visual complexity. It helps piece together that moment of narrative. Or take the P-bar, which is taken directly from the comics, but is actually a video game reference. It works really well because it is animated to hang within a fixed point and glide away from Scott. That animated bar representing the protagonist's urine might be one of the finest stylistic ideas in the movie. And as an added piece of world building, you can see the P-bar in the mirror, making it not just a graphics overlay, but something that literally lives in the universe. It's pretty well done. All of these visual ideas, and some we didn't mention, are building towards the first act climax. The point at which the true conceit of the movie kicks off. It's where we get to the aspect of Scott Pilgrim that succeeds where most other comic book inspired films fail. The fight scenes perfectly mix live action footage, video game iconography, and comic book storytelling to create a visual world all its own, a visual identity. In Scott's fight with Matthew Patel, speed lines, poke pow onomatopoeia, and video game tropes unfurl and set the stage for the rest of the film's runtime. Every fight for the rest of the movie uses these ideas and builds on them further. They all flow directly from the characters and they build and expand the world of that story just like the comic would. As an added bonus, the film also uses Brian Lee O'Malley's drawings to tell Ramona's backstory about how she dated Patel. This helps the whole film feel a little more handmade and have a personality in a way that couldn't be achieved otherwise. They even go as far to include O'Malley's drawings in the shot where Scott explains his past relationship with N.B. Adams. There are so many visual ideas in this film that it could have become cluttered or overcrowded, but instead it feels more like an explosion of creativity because of how intricately these ideas are overlaid on top of one another. And a few other films have tried this. Examples are things like Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy, Ang Lee's Hulk, and Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez's beloved Sin City. Both Tracy and Sin City opted to use filmic language, but alter the visuals of the world to be as close to the source material as possible, to varying levels of success. However, Ang Lee's Hulk is the only other major motion picture that really swung for the fences in terms of incorporating comics language into a movie, and it didn't go quite as well as Scott Pilgrim. And that distinction is clear. Ironically, the way that Lee approaches the multiple angles just like a comic book visual motif is the same underlying idea as the transitions in Scott Pilgrim, but just not as well executed. It's the go-to solution for someone who doesn't actually read comics. Lee's idea of having multiple filmic points of view on a single event is flawed at times. It shatters the illusion that what you're watching is a document of actual events and mutates it into an artificially performed reality which viewers usually reject. And after looking at these examples, you can see why scenes like this or this get different audience reactions than that aforementioned Hulk film.
Puny human.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World succeeds where a whole lot of other films that attempted to do this have failed because of one simple reason: its intention. The individuals behind the camera, Edgar Wright, Brian Lee O'Malley, and loads of people involved all understood what it was conceptually they wanted to do. They got the voice of the source material and they were attempting to channel that through ensuring that the comics language elements weren't artifice, that they were intentionally built into the universe of the movie. They grow organically out of both Wright's stylistic proclivities and the fact that the movie itself exists in a world that is heightened and stylized. Despite the fact that comic books are the primary source material for a lot of Hollywood at this point, it's sometimes frustrating how little respect or genuine investigation goes into their mining by the filmmakers at the helm. There are a lot of diehard fans of both O'Malley and Scott Pilgrim, and when a film adaptation was announced, a lot of people were concerned they wouldn't be able to capture the voice and the tone of the book. Many were convinced they would screw it up like a lot of other adaptations, because who in their right mind could have predicted that a book this personal would get an equally personal adaptation? And yet, there was a packed theater at San Diego Comic-Con filled to the brim with thousands of cheering fans, who most of which were immediately put at ease when the film started, and it obviously was going to carry over that stylistic, tonal, and technical facility of the book. Seeing a film surrounded by that roaring fan base that literally cheered every time a caption box or biff bang bow showed up on screen was probably a great way to experience this film, but the perfect evidence that the narrative fidelity that Wright and company had opted for was absolutely the best and maybe the only path for a film like this. Which is why Scott Pilgrim is one of the only movies to ever successfully use comic book storytelling in a live action film. Well guys, that's it for today's episode of Nostalgic. If you enjoyed this one, press the like button down below. If you haven't yet done so, also hit subscribe. That way you won't miss anything on the channel. Right here are two more. You can click on either of these, stay right here, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.